school year 2011. Yeah? Because you had junior and senior year, or just senior year with Nathan?
Oh, I'm pretty sure at least junior and senior. I don't know.
Well, here's why. Because my recollection, I don't remember seeing... I'm sure that we did. I don't remember meeting you until winter retreat.
So I remember meeting you once before that.
Okay.
And I know that it was before Mark and Carly, like, there was I don't know. I have this very vivid memory of us being...
Anything.
I can tell you. Okay, but this can't go up.
It's fine. I'll beep names. If it's
Or
names.
how about the whole sentence? It was...
Oh! There was
I don't know what time frame this is.
So the reason that you have so far, listener, felt it complicated to keep up is because we're probably either beeping names or repressing memories in that
we met a long time ago.
We met when we were extremely different people at a time when we didn't know who we were. But my memory is that my best friend at the time, Mark, him and I were inseparable buddies. And then, I don't know if were you best friends?
Yeah.
Your best friend at the time, Carly, were in the same way. Mark and I met the two of you, or rather...
really
became friends with the two of you at the winter retreat of our youth group. Which again,
those times.
Significantly different people back in the day. Who knows... sorry, I'm doing a quick thing. I'm also cutting that real fast. Because I pulled up some notes here. I wanted to make sure that it's at least still rolling while I don't have it pulled up on my phone. Which it is. So...
I just... Sorry.
No, hit me.
The recollection of how you would probably know that time frame just makes me giggle.
Because of...
just the randomness of that detail.
Of
being pivotal in knowing what time frame this is.
What do you mean by that?
Like knowing, I don't know, someone who doesn't have anything to do with this specific story.
Oh, you're saying
my realization of that was just, I'm coming back to it.
We had to beep a name because Kaci was, let's just say, Kaci was dating someone at the time that we have no interest in talking about in that capacity, but it helped link kind of who we were, where we were. Yeah. At the time, church was a thing that I was kind of voluntarily participating in. My parents didn't go to church. Right. My family didn't go to church. Well, my dad did, but he went in Grand Ledge. So it was like a thing that felt like an extracurricular activity to me. But you kind of...
It was an outlet.
Right. You kind of grew up in the church, correct?
Yeah, I very, very much twice a Sunday service.
You did both services?
Morning and night. And then...
So cool.
Yeah. And then, youth group when we switched over to Lake City.
Talk about, at whatever length you feel comfortable, your relationship with the church back then.
Ooh.
Or maybe even Big G God. Yeah, not now, but like...
Yeah, I can speak on that. I have very, vivid memories of feeling very intensely about certain things within religion, but it always felt like in a pain, in a shaming way.
Okay.
Like the feelings I had were so strong because I knew that Jesus had died for me like this.
Well, that's how they kept us.
Exactly. So as a child, I remember those very painful, intense moments of feeling so shit for existing.
Right.
But I didn't obviously understand it and thought that, okay, this is the love. This is the...
And you were born in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very much I guess I believe it. I don't have any other basis for knowledge. And it was a very small town, very secluded, and pre-widespread internet.
And for
usage,
context,
so
we were both small town. Technically, I guess you were smaller town.
700 people within the
because
city.
I was in Lake City, which was adjacent to, for any listeners, Cadillac was like the city with the Walmart. So that was the big city. And the movie theater, which I ended up working at. Irrelevant. The show that's not about ADHD, but it's filled with movies. But Cadillac was like the bigger town of 10,000 or so. And then Lake City, I think even still the population is probably 1,100, somewhere around that. And then McBain was the adjacent farm town, which is still just small town. Yeah. But it was like probably square miles bigger than Lake City, but it was like reserved.
The city itself is a mile square. It is literally...
Oh, right, downtown McBain.
It is literally a mile square. That's 700 people within. But... the surrounding community is all farmland and people and
so. I just remember it being a pretty place to drive through,
but beautiful.
Then you're in McBain and it's just like, what? There's really nothing here.
Yeah, I remember being so bored at home as a kid and being like, I just need to get out. Like, I'm just gonna go for a walk. So I would like walk downtown on a Wednesday night, 9:00. Not a single thing is open. Not a single car. Like, it's streetlights and me. And
what did they even have there to do?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, there's the playground.
Okay. So there's the
track you could go to, which you're not really supposed to, but we lived behind it, so we could easily get to it. For us, our grandpa's barn, just down the road, but it was never. I was always alone.
Right.
I didn't have any cousins who were really that close in age, and who we like spent time together.
Well, the reason I bring that up too is because in Lake City, you eventually moved into the Lake City Christian Reformed Church.
Yes.
But you were also going to a private Christian school.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was the McBain Christian School. Do you remember how big your graduating class was?
Maybe 25 people.
Oh, God. And
I think probably 20-ish were from kindergarten.
Insane.
It's,
I know it's hard to kind of, if not relive, just remember a lot of that. But like at the time, what was it like being, because you don't really have any reference for how small your town is.
No context for anything.
Context, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
for
tiny.
How small my town was, how small my school, my social circle,
But even more so, it wasn't just that you were in a private school, you were in a private Christian school.
Yes.
I know it's a very vague question, but what was that like? With no context of what it would be beyond that.
I think for me, it drove home this sense that I couldn't trust myself and the things that I felt. I had to trust God. I had to trust my parents. I had to trust authority. Basically, whatever was told to me to be the right thing at the time. I didn't get much of a sense of like being pushed to discover things, to really question anything, because when you're feeding someone something, you don't want to also encourage them to question it, because then that's how you lose people.
And a big part of being in that school wasn't just that it's a Christian school, but like I guess my question is, what is the curriculum like when you're part of a private Christian school? Like, is every single class like we pray before class and then we?
No, but it is like you pray. You probably pray in your first class when you get to school, and then you probably pray in your class right before lunch. And then maybe at the end of the day, depending on like who you have or what's going on.
Which is funny because I picture so many, whatever. I guess I'm totally off topic here, but I'm picturing so many individuals who I know did not give a shit about the Christian theology side of it. They were just born and raised in the school, in
100%.
the town, and that's it.
100%. Oh, that's, I mean, yes. You don't have... How do I say this?
You'll find it.
The people who are in public schools are the same kind of people that are in private schools.
Exactly.
Like, you're not putting your kids with better kids.
Right.
Your kids are not better kids.
They're kids.
They are children. They're children trying to survive in the world
right.
that is around them. So, it's a whole society of power and popularity,
mm-hmm.
and it's just on a smaller scale,
mm-hmm.
and it, for me, felt very much more, I felt more vulnerable because I was one of 25 and no new people coming in and having opportunities to like break out of that, rather than being one in 250 and getting to meet new people in each class that you take, right?
Which even still technically 250 is considered small school.
Right.
I think of the graduating class was like 40 people in Lake City, and like when you say 25, it's like, dang, that's small. But even 40 is like, what?
Yeah. It's less than 300 people from K through 12.
Insane.
So I'm like, it was no chance of breaking out of whatever view people had of me.
Right.
I can't say exactly what that was. I can say how it felt at the time, like as a kid.
What do you think that is? What do you think people thought of you when you were younger?
Like when I was younger, what were the thoughts that I was having?
No, just what...
My analysis on it.
What did you... Well, I guess maybe how did you feel about yourself, but more pointedly, like how do you think other people viewed you? Or how did you think other people viewed you?
I always felt apart from people. I had like one best friend throughout like all of elementary school. I would connect with like one person, but didn't feel seen by other people. So in a way, just like almost like I didn't exist. But then the feedback that I got from them was usually, at least that I remember, was more on the like, I don't get you, like, I don't understand what you're at, like, a little more putting me down, or maybe not intentionally, but the way that they engaged with me, I understood it as criticism.
Okay. And
so then, yeah, it just often would, it was never a comfortable thing for me. So that's where I'm like, it's hard to say exactly, because I know that the anxiety that I have of people's perceptions is largely based in a lot of my childhood experiences, but I also know that I was a child experiencing them, and there were other children experiencing their own lives, and I don't think that people were intending on hurting me all the time, but there are things that have stuck with me for 20 years.
Well, I think
that like sometimes felt pointed, sometimes I could have moments where I'm like, oh, maybe that's, I can actually see them just saying that out of being a child.
Right. Like a bird's eye view.
Like, right. Yeah. And so I can get behind that. I can see that. But it was very difficult at the time.
The reason I ask it in that way is like, even in the best of circumstances, let's use that like cliche, like if you're a popular kid, either it's one of two things. Either you don't actually believe that you're popular and just everyone else thinks that you are. And so like when you're 30 and you think back on your high school days, you're like, I didn't think that I was that cool, because you still like have these internal monologue issues. You still have what you come to back home. Or the flip side of that is you hang on to like that identity of like, I was top dog, I was the cool shit, and then it like festers this ego that you carry into your adulthood that you refuse to let go of. So like we still
let go of and can't live up to.
Right.
Right.
Because we still hang on to Our perception of who we were and what others thought of us as a kid
Yeah.
is how we view ourselves and how other people think of us now. Even
Right.
though objectively, most of it is not true. What
Right,
we
absolutely.
believe other people to perceive us as is probably not true.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where what I've learned, what I've really figured out is that this anxiety is something that I've almost put on myself.
Right.
Because it is like, I'm so hyper aware of everyone's perceptions of me, or my experience of
What
it.
you believe.
What I
other
believe.
people's
Well,
perceptions.
exactly.
Right.
What I experience as their perceptions of me, and what that makes me feel.
I get it. We're talking about what. Well, see, now I'm hung up on it as well. We're kind of just, it's fine that we don't carry on exactly what we're talking about, because the greater point is we were shaped by a small town mentality
100%.
of what other people thought of us, or what we thought other people thought of us.
Yes. And so then coming to the realization that I am creating this whole scenario in my mind that I'm living under that was very real, and I had to, at a certain point, I did experience it and have to cope with that. But I'm not still there. I don't have to have that hyper vigilance anymore. I'm built a safe space. I'm in a safe relationship. I don't spend time with people who don't make me feel safe. So
That's important. All right, y'all. If you're watching the video version, see that skull? See this? This is not a punk house, it's a punk home banner. All of these things are available at catandcrew.com. That's right. They're the first sponsors. Catandcrew.com. Enter the promo code MONDAY. It's Monday, MUNDAY, to receive 10% off of your final purchase. You can get those koozies, you can get banners, you can get earrings, you can get coasters, you can get skull planters. I think it's really cool that they decided to give A.D.H.Deep-Dive listeners an exclusive deal. Because, it's cool that we're building a little audience here and that you guys get to have some sort of special perks that nobody else gets. So if you aren't familiar with it yet, go to catandcrew.com, enter the promo code MONDAY, MUNDAY at checkout, get 10% off your final order. Okay. Back to the show. Sure. Well, just for clarity's sake, if you were listening, we had to take just a quick pause. So if we're sloppy in our getting back into it, that's why. But you said that you can sum it up? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the original question was...
Oh, there was a question.
Well, maybe not a question, but the original...
I don't even remember the questions I asked.
The original prompt was summing up how we met.
Oh, right. We're there.
So, way, way back.
Yeah.
We met at a retreat.
Yes.
That we went through, the youth group that we both attended, and we hung out, the four of us. Carly and Mark instantly were together.
Yeah.
David and I were
we're pals.
We're pals. We're cool.
I think that was the thing. It's it started as a group of four friends, two best friends.
Yeah.
We were just pals hanging out. Then Mark and Carly got together, got married, had a bunch of kids. The rest is history.
Doing the whole thing.
Right. I don't know if that's exactly the transition that I want to go, because I confronted Kaci and said I have a pretty abrupt transition.
Oh, yeah.
I think I will eventually get into, but an aggressive question, I guess, is all these years later, and maybe we're kind of rushing this thing here. There's a lot of stuff, of course, in between.
Oh yeah, but
not
we got time.
Not the Christian God,
Mm-hmm.
but what is your relationship to your own spirituality these days? Because of course, again, as I mentioned, I've already talked about this on here plenty. My relationship to God and Christianity was a choice of mine.
Right.
Same thing with my separation from it.
Yeah.
Yours was kind of forced upon you and then developed into whatever. Maybe it was a sincere relationship with God at a certain point.
Not fully. No.
But
there was a part of me that was willing to believe it to maintain the view people had of me.
Well, I guess still relevant.
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's a loaded question and it feels like you have to over-explain to whatever capacity, but like, what is your relationship to spirituality? Do you have a spiritual life these days?
Spiritual life, absolutely.
Okay.
Not religious life.
Sure. Well, one more thing.
Religion in a like organized religious.
Theocracy is, I'm not talking about theocracy, but I think it's important to know that we went to a Christian Reformed church, which technically, all things considered, is a more, I don't know that I want to use the word progressive, but it is a more lax view, subjectively maybe. I think everybody's experience is of course different, but as opposed to like traditional Catholicism, like it is a more flexible view of Christianity than some hardline Christian theologies.
Theology, yes, but aggression in policing. These days,
I don't necessarily mean
it would be the opposite.
I don't necessarily mean in the teachings. I just mean that there are some hardline, and I'm maybe throwing daggers at one particular organization, but like Catholicism is pretty like locked by the book. Right. It is that.
We do a lot of speculation.
Well, right. And, exactly. Yeah. Christian Reform is more of like, well, that's just our interpretation, man. Like, we're going to teach what we believe this teaching to be. Yeah. But like...
And you better believe it.
Right. You better believe what we teach you in this small C church. Yes. The big C church, in a Christian Reform view, is more flexible with the times. It doesn't mean that it is progressive in any way or that it is caught up to the time. I just mean that, like, to me, and this is extremely subjective, to me, the fact that I went to a Christian Reformed church is the only reason I'm able to not be a Christian these days, is because it didn't feel like, even though there were certainly consequences communicated to me about what it would be like to not have a relationship with God, it would not be the same as if I was at Sister Mary's Catholic Church, you know what I mean? Right. That said, like, your view of spirituality now is probably shaped by the flexibility of, I'm not saying it's one-to-one, I'm just saying the looseness of spirituality is maybe shaped in a unique way by the Christian Reformed Church, where it could have been significantly more hardline.
Sure. Yeah, I think theologically you are correct. Like in the general view of Christianity, I think my experience within my family was very much that it ruled everything. Yeah. And there was no room to question it. And so then it was used as a reason to control a lot of things.
Well, and I'm sorry to step on your toes here.
No, you're good.
I do kind of want to make it pointed because there is a lot of filler in between that. Like, there's a lot of life that has happened in between now and then that has formed your spirituality as well. Right. But what are some spiritual, like, practices that you find yourself engaging in? The reason I bring that up.
Thank you for bringing us back to.
Yes. I walked in and you said I was just doing a little meditation.
My current relationship with like spirituality as a whole, I don't subscribe to any specific named theology, I guess. But I definitely am influenced by some Buddhism and Hinduism, in that I'm very open to experiencing what energetically is happening around us. So I really enjoy meditation. I've had some really good like awakening moments. Everything is hard to set into a pattern. ADHD, autism, wonderful. So moments like that are necessary for me to just be like, oh, I don't have anything to do, waiting for you to get here. I'm just gonna chill. Just listen to the wind, the birds, breathe,
I think a reason that it's that doubling down on the like spiritual question here is that for many people in their relationship to the Big C church, the idea of anything more, especially when they separate from the Big C church, is that the idea of anything more is like, no, like a lot of post or ex-Christians become fervent atheists.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're asking. I don't believe that there necessarily is God as a being.
Right.
I believe in God as in we are all beings
I'm
on
here
a
for
living
this.
planet, on a living, like, we're all one thing.
Right.
We're all connected. And so it's like, I don't necessarily think that there's something bigger in a God watching out for us and like looking over us sense, but bigger as in life out there somewhere.
There's more.
Yes, there's more. Absolutely. And there's life happening around us that we're not.
The last time I was here, I don't know if you remember this, but I think casually we were talking about our relationship to religion and especially our former relationship to Christianity, in that my view of God has changed drastically from what it was when I was a Christian, and instead has shifted to, I don't necessarily disbelieve in, I want to be very careful in the way that I word this, God and a God are different things to 100%. Me. That my understanding of how Christians and Catholics and any theists view God is that it is an entity, that it is a person, that it is a being in the sky who controls all, who knows all, who is all. And that takes away a lot of personal agency in human beings that at first I turned into atheism. And I was like, there is no God, there is no purpose, there is nothing beyond what we have now. And I have a shifting view of what God could be, in that the word God sounds like I'm talking about a dude because of the way that it's been perceived. Exactly. But God, to me, is more of it is the existence of everything.
Yes.
It is the calculated existence of everything. And that can also exist in randomness, but can also exist as part of a greater plan. I don't think that there's a puppeteer pulling the strings, but it like feeds into that like everything happens for a reason thing. Like that doesn't exist just solely in Christianity.
Right.
That like, what is it? The phrase like, we are consciousness experiencing itself. That is God to me. It doesn't mean that it's a person. It just means that it is a point of view. God is a point of view to me.
I relate with that.
Did you dabble in atheism?
Not specifically. I think it was very much like on that view of like, I don't believe in the God that is in the sky that we've been sold or anything that looks like that. But I don't think I ever was at a point where I didn't believe there was anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because maybe this is a more casual way to get into a transition to what I was talking about than more abrupt. I'm probably going to cut out a big gap here as I figure out how I want to formulate.
Can I?
Sure, please.
Tell you? Okay. So I think what I would say is that I am completely aware and comfortable with not knowing.
Great.
Of not knowing, not having to know what's next, what is more. Like, I want to know because I'm curious, and so I am digging into what is more. But I'm not doing it because I'm afraid of some outcome that I can't handle or can't be okay with, I have no control over it. It's just one of those things that for me, I have found a lot of peace in not knowing and not having to. So it's the freedom of taking everything in, not being afraid to like hear something new and check it and see what it holds for me, like what I actually can identify with in it. Some things just are shit.
Right.
And some things really stick, and okay. For me, that's what it means.
To me, I'm sorry to just take your thing and make it my own.
I do the same thing.
But that dabbling with atheism felt like, for a small period of time, the only option, because it was like I went from so fervently believing that Big G, God, the dude in the sky, Jesus, the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, clearly we held on. Anyways, going from that, it started in like an angry... It went from like the positive Christian to the angry Christian to the atheist, in that it was like, look, man, all of the good things happen because of God. That's phase one. Then the angry Christian was like, well, shit, that must mean all the bad things happen because of God. Then it was like, why, while still holding on to this belief that God exists, why would a God who quote unquote loves me also allow these horrific, terrible things to happen? And then that turned into, well, maybe God just doesn't exist. Yeah. And so it went from happy Christian to angry Christian to neutral atheist to then a furious atheist, where it was like a total juxtaposition, where it's like, Christians are the problem. Which...
don't get me wrong.
I hold on to some.
Don't get me wrong. My seemingly pacifism about this is just because I understand it really well.
Sure.
I went through angry periods. Of feeling shame about like identities, but it was really not so much. What I'm realizing now, it wasn't really so much of I feel shame because I really believe it, but more of like this thing, this being, this part of me is like suffocating and it can't come out because it is like, because I know what it means having to lose people that I desperately needed to survive. So
when you say losing people that you needed to survive,
yes.
What do you mean by that?
Family, like people who...
Now are you saying by shedding religion or
No, sorry. By coming out as queer, by living authentically in any way, truly, not just who I am as a like in my sexuality and my like gender identity.
I really have to hone in on that. So you brought up, just in general terms, that your queerness or your identity did not align or did not mesh well with the religion that we once aligned ourselves with.
Yeah.
But there is a process of coming to the conclusions about your queerness or your identity that is an actual livable experience. When it comes to your identity, not just how you identify, but some of the layers of your personality that you shed or gained, can you just talk on that process when it became more clear to you that the person you were, or the person that you thought you were, when it became clear to you that the person you thought you were is not who you truly were?
Yeah. Can I explain my understanding of who I was, how I came to know myself.
But also, I want to just quickly say that I'm gonna show my ass here in the way that in this phrase, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm speaking on bird's eye view experience of my friend.
Yes.
You are probably one of you are. I don't. Okay. As a straight white man.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for acknowledging
as a straight
the elephant in the room.
As a straight white man, it is often, maybe uncomfortable, but I try so desperately not to offend in my lack of understanding of queer culture or queer identity, not queer culture, because I desperately want to understand and empathize and be a part of the conversation and an ally.
Yes.
But it's also out of curiosity,
right?
More, and I feel like straight white men step on our toes a lot when we're like forcing ourselves into the conversation just to be a part of the conversation. Right. But you are my friend who I want to know more about.
And so, that's
So just quickly, I know you will.
Yes.
But in a broad sense, pardon me in the way that I step on my own toes and misspeak. It is out of curiosity and a hope that this can serve as a conversation to educate, not mandate my own opinions.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you putting that out there. I know that about you, but I appreciate you putting it out there for other people to see and to be sure that I understand.
Yes.
As well. I think that means a lot.
I want you to talk about your perception of your development as a person while shedding labels.
Yeah. Okay.
Take the floor. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm stepping on each other's lap.
5 years old.
Way back when I was just a wee little one.
Yeah. I mean, but really, from as far as I can remember,
sure,
I have felt outside of people, of groups of people, of understanding, life. And that has to do with neurodiversity as well as my identities, the other identities that I hold. But that's just, I think because my experience in life generally felt so much apart that it was hard for me to pull the layers apart of what was queer, what was like sexuality, gender, autism, ADHD, just me in general, like it just, I think because that was so complex anyway, it was just another part of my experience of feeling othered. I don't know if any of that is making sense.
It's making sense to me.
Okay. So it took me, and because of how sheltered I was in a lot of ways, I didn't really understand that there was anything outside of the norm, which I think is the experience of a lot of people. The norm being what we're told is the norm.
Well, I will say even including queerness in the norm, the perception when we were growing up is that there is man, woman, gay, lesbian, bisexual. And it was pretty much that. There was not a whole lot beyond that.
Right. Exactly. So, it's I always knew I wasn't like a girl. Like,
let's use the phrase. You were tomboy culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was a tomboy. And that felt really good to be like, oh yeah, I was rough and I was like muddy and I had shit in my hair and I didn't give a fuck. And I was happy. But at a certain point, in my life, my mom left, and we were picking up pieces of that, and a lot of my identity was lost in that, and in needing to please other people to get the things that I needed, and to make sure they didn't also leave me, and make sure, how we take that kind of shit on ourselves. But yeah, so it's
tough.
It's tough.
Podcasting is hard, people.
It is. It's hard when you have to remember things.
Do you want me to be more pointed in my questions here, rather than just throwing it to you?
Yeah, because I think I can talk forever about anything and go into the most minute details of it. So if you wanna,
can I be old straight white man question about it?
Yeah, legitimately, ask me what you want.
I will.
That's what I did want to say earlier too. Is that I appreciate you clarifying where you're coming from, and I am always open to having real conversation about the things. So it's it's not uncomfortable for me to talk about it, but it's also,
it's hard for you to ramble about it. It's not uncomfortable for you to talk about it, but it's hard for you to take the floor and be like, it's time for me to talk about what it's like to live.
So I think part of it is that so much of my life and the way that I exist is based on a lot of complex, very interconnected sets of traumas for different reasons, for neurodiversity, for all of the things. And so then it's hard for me to and because my brain is very interconnected, everything feels important. So it's hard for me to filter out what is actually needed in the moment to describe the thing, because it's oh, but it was this thing, and this is how you know what I mean? It's hard filtering through the information to even explain the thing.
I will simplify it in
just ask me
the most casual of terms. Okay. Once upon a time, you identified as a woman. No longer do you identify as a woman.
I would say the only reason I never did before is because I didn't understand it was a possibility.
Exactly.
In a term.
That's exactly what I'm looking for here.
Yep. So I always knew I was not what I was told a woman was, which I don't believe that what I was told is what a woman is.
And this isn't touching on femininity or masculinity. No, this is the term woman.
Yes. Right. Yeah, and I always knew that I did not fit in with that, but at a certain point, I dove head into femininity to mask and find some sort of validation.
Yeah, sorry, I'm laughing at the fact that mask is a term in that to mask other feelings, but not mask.
But also mask.
Not mask, yeah.
Yes.
My understanding of what you're saying is that you were not, that you dove into femininity to please others, not to please yourself. Right.
100%. It didn't feel, it was never authentic, but it felt necessary. It was not something that I was intentionally driving. It was something that I had to do to survive, to find some sort of belonging.
And there was a lack of, we've talked about the internet playing a role, that there was no community to identify with.
Exactly.
Other than the small Christian community you were a part of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it just, I always had something, and I think maybe that is part of where my never fully believing in God is, because to a certain extent I did understand a certain that's not, what do you mean I don't think that's right, I don't believe that is real, or that we should care about that thing, because I already, like, let's say God says men and women, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, I already know that I don't fit in with that. So like,
right.
so like how people enforce it, I'm like, nah, those are all rules that you're putting up, but I had to be a part of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it very much was not out of a healthy, like, exploring myself. It was a hiding myself. Yeah. Hiding the true self.
To make it more pointed.
Yes.
Because I feel like, is that, well, just be clear, is that what you need from me, to be more pointed in the way that I talk about this?
Yeah.
Rather than just letting you go with it? Because there's things that I want to know.
Can you ask me just ask me the question? I think that's where I have a hard time, is because you're looking for something.
I'm not looking for anything.
Well, but you're asking a specific, I think I just need to, like, I
find your story
mm-hmm.
to be relevant
mm-hmm.
to a wide swath of people who don't truly know how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm trying to kind of like pitch it to you
mm-hmm.
is because it's not really my place to talk about it,
mm-hmm.
but also I want you to speak on your experience
right.
of shedding layers of what you formerly identified as,
mm-hmm.
or if it's even shedding layers and more gaining an understanding of who you truly are. Did you shed parts of yourself, or?
It's both.
Okay.
I would say it's both. There are parts of myself that were guarding me that I had to shed, that were guarding from actually being me, or actually coming out being real. And so I had to shed that. And that came after, 8 years of knowing that I was not straight.
That's exactly where I want you to touch on. This is the the parts of life that like one thing leads to another.
Okay.
This is the snowball effect. Like,
I can give a timeline of
a timeline of your queerness. Oh. That's what we'll call this episode. A timeline of queerness.
I got you.
Okay.
Hey, kids.
Well, let's talk.
Story time. Yeah. Always knew I was not fitting in with the gender I was assigned or told what that meant. Always, as a young kid, you don't even know what it actually feels like to like someone. You say you do. Kids are always saying they do, but I don't fully believe anyone. Like, you develop that
mm-hmm.
as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at a certain point I was acting probably like everyone else.
Sure.
But that, I think, felt so normal to me that it was just, okay, this is what I'm told is what happens. You feel things for boys, so okay, I guess I feel like whatever I feel is like.
And the thing I feel is like liking someone, yes. Or were you just okay?
So like the way I feel, like I can't think of the word, but I think I have. It's where you can't like understand the actual feelings that you're having. It's like you can't name them. You can't like really put words to it. You can't match them, kind of. So it's hard, like, what was the thing I just said before that?
Before that?
Before.
We're talking about a timeline of queerness.
Yes.
It's tough, huh? Okay.
So,
there was a time in your life where you did not feel like you were just talking about how like you felt like you liked boys because that was like just what you do. You just like boys.
You totally like girls like boys.
Yep.
Okay, I guess that's what that is. I don't know what that feels like to actually like someone, so I guess this is what it feels like. And the people that I really felt safe with, well, I had like one good friend, and I loved her as a person, as my like the person who sees me and knows me. And I like didn't have any understanding of like, of how like, oh, someone who sees me as a guy should feel similarly to this, sure. Right? Of this, like, oh, they love me, they care about me, like we are connected. It was so far apart in my mind of like, this is this way, this is a complete other thing, because I'm told I'm not able to feel anything close to women, I guess. You know, I think as a kid, it sometimes I stutter.
So be it.
It developed in me a sense of like any closeness that I feel is wrong because it's. I'm getting lost in everything.
I'll make it more pointed. I'll keep doing it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll make it more pointed.
I'm back to where.
Okay.
Anyway, I got out of high school. Started seeing more of things online. There being like Instagram started, and more content was out there than what I had seen before, mm-hmm. and like really started resonating with things. And actually, I had an experience once where I was working and went out for lunch and like ran through McDonald's drive-through, and I don't know, I just like ordered and I pulled up to the window, and the person who was taking the money and everything, like we just locked eyes, and it felt like for the first time I had felt like I understood that they were feeling a similar thing.
Do you mean attraction?
Attraction, yeah, but also like it wasn't just like, oh, this person's attractive, but like we both like were thrown off by it. Okay. That's what I a
person who was not a man.
Correct.
Okay.
And I had never seen them before, and like they just struck me, and I was like, well, you know, just like, and I know that happens for people a lot. That had never happened to me before, and I'm out of high school.
So you're saying your queerness started in the drive-thru of McDonald's?
No, literally, like part of an awakening in me did.
Okay, that's
because
great.
That was the first time that I had like felt like someone saw me and I saw them.
Great.
Yeah. And then of course I was like, I can't go there again. And I did one other time, and I went there multiple times because I was like, I went and ate there, but I also was hoping to see them.
Yeah.
I probably never would have said a word, but it was great. It was really great for me as an exploration of myself, of just being like, oh my God, like this is what it feels like to like somebody, I think. Like, yeah. I'm gonna first moment of defining what that feels like.
I'm gonna continue to hone it in.
Yeah.
In that, because I think a follow-up question is, if it needed to become more simplistic over and over again, if like this question didn't work and then this question didn't work and then this did like not understand like what you're saying here.
Am I not going in a direction that you're...
No, you're perfectly.
Okay.
I am not I'm not looking for anything. I'm looking for you to feel as comfortable as you can to talk about it. So
I feel good right now.
Well, not that you feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I just mean to put it on a timeline, up until, and if I'm simplifying it more than you feel is true, please cut me off here. But up until this at least one-off experience, your relationship with intimacy and attraction had only been on a binary man and woman. I am attracted to men or boys only in this regard. And then you spotted a person who was not a man that you were attracted to. This is maybe some beginnings?
So I would say I was always attracted to women and always attracted to men, but more so my attraction to men, as I have learned and grown, I've realized that is more of, there's something in you that I see that feels real for me, but it's not necessarily, it's more of a gender identity recognition than a relational.
My understanding
and
go ahead.
So I feel like I thought that what I was feeling for the men that I was seeing and meeting was, I thought it was, and at times it was true attraction, but often there were things that I was seeing in them that I wanted to be.
So my understanding of what you're saying, and I feel like it's important for me to do this just so I can, because I feel like I'm also speaking for an audience here.
Yeah.
In that, my understanding of what you're saying is that you knew up until a certain point that you could be attracted to personality traits that exist in both men and women, but that you didn't know you could be physically attracted to women as well. Is that correct? Okay.
I mean, yes and no. So yes, I knew it was a thing to be attracted to women, but because of society's and my own family's clear
your connection to religion,
indications of what that means to them, I could never be it, but I could also for a very long time not even see it within myself. But looking back, there are times where I think I could, but I didn't understand it. I didn't let myself link that.
I just mean in what I said. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm stepping on your toes.
So I had that experience, and it was validation of what I was starting to understand about myself. And more of a okay, this is something I've had, not you need to have an experience for it to be valid, but in a way of validating for my own exploration that, okay, there is attraction there and someone sees something in me from what I felt, in that interaction. So that was really big. And then being in Cadillac, as you know, and I didn't live there, but working there and had friends there.
Cadillac's the hub for Lake City, McBain, and all that stuff.
And it's a very, for my experience, it is a very sad place for Cadillac, but the whole general area. Yeah. And I was dying. Maybe not physically, maybe not, but I was suffocating. And within my own home, I think there was always grief looming over everything. And so there was not a lot of space for me to really explore life. And so when I was still living at home, which was really my only option for money purposes, it just was I'm in Cadillac, I have a few friends, and we hang out once, and then I go home and it's really sad. It just was a lot of going really into feeling desperate to be rescued, I think.
At this point,
out of that space, because I couldn't see any way out Actually, I've been thinking about this recently. I think, I guess this is a little...
It's okay.
Because of the level of, like, pain that was always around, that, and the expectations of religion and of all of the things, that I felt that I had to have a reason to leave my dad's house. Like, there were times where one of my sisters would, like, I'd talk about something. You're gonna move out of dad's? You're gonna leave dad alone? You're gonna, like...
Doubling down on that
yes,
shame.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so it's like, I had to have a valid reason, and I didn't think that to myself. I didn't have that cognitive awareness of that, but that is what drove my choices of finding someone. They decided they wanted to be with me, great. They wanted to marry me, great. Like, it was my way out, but it was it was an escape that also needed an escape.
Can I touch on this?
Yeah.
We do not need to talk about the actual relationship. Mm-hmm. We don't need to talk about what it was like being married.
Yeah.
But my understanding of your timeline right now is that you had started to understand some of the truths about yourself that you had either repressed or not understood when it comes to your queer identity. And despite that, you were in a monogamous straight.
I think in a lot of ways because of that. Because of coming to some terms of not being knowing that if I wanted to continue relationships with certain people, that I had to go with the norm way of life, which, and to get out of, like, the situation that I was in with just being, like, drowning in you know, boredom and pain and all of the things, at my dad's house, like, it informed decisions that I made to get me out of there.
Again, cut me off if I'm incorrect. Mm-hmm. If I'm understanding you, you're saying that at this point you had started to understand, maybe not accept, but started to understand that you were not a straight woman.
Yes.
And to repress some of those feelings in order to please others.
Yeah.
Let me flip those. In order to please others, you decided to repress those feelings and instead cave into more traditional values of marriage and serving others.
Yeah. And I think, too, I was able to kind of fool or justify that denial of myself because of unless I, like, meet a woman, I'll just, like, date guys or something. You know what I mean? Like, of this, like, if I meet someone, then I'll come out because maybe then it would be worth the hassle of, like, and the, like, pain of dealing with all of those things. But I wasn't willing to do it for myself.
Right.
And so I chose relationships, and especially one that was not healthy, and got married.
Let me say, you can say that again. Not healthy.
Yeah, it was abusive.
My outside view of that, we're not going to talk about the relationship itself, but my outside view of that, even knowing, or rather not knowing, who you would become, or who you were, rather, that you had not yet understood who you were, my view from the outside, as just a casual friend, was like, what the fuck?
As friends who, like, hadn't talked in years and didn't talk for a few more.
Yes.
Right? Like,
I'm at...
Yeah.
No, we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about
it's... yeah, it was a whole thing, and we can talk about that at some point. If we want to, and we can talk about it, but we can also talk about it.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Point, but
my outside view of that was it was very clear that you were not.
It was not
doing what you wanted to do when you were married to this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was again dying inside, dying to myself. Probably about a year after we got married, just before our first year anniversary, I kind of had a moment of realization that like it was a strange moment that like broke that like seal of not fully like ripping off the band-aid of being like, oh my God, I am queer. Like it's full on, it's real, right? Like and it's something, it was a really random comment made by like my sister-in-law, and all of a sudden it just was like, whoa, like a flood opened, and I understood myself so much more. And
you're saying there's a moment?
Yeah, there was a moment where all of a sudden it was like maybe this isn't my reality forever.
Quick thing, because I'm specifically saying there is a moment. We're going to pick up on that moment in just a second. And for listeners, yeah, we cut. Sorry, bro. My camera can only record for 30 minutes at a time.
My brain can only work for 10.
But you said that there's kind of a specific moment in your life where you started to...
Yes.
Well, I'm not even going to continue.
Yeah.
There's a moment.
There was a moment about a year after I had gotten married where some random comment in passing had like clicked for me just right, that kind of opened a floodgate of understanding of myself, but also of the realities of what like living authentically would bring. Mm-hmm. Meaning that would mean that
Go ahead.
I would be getting divorced. I know that's not always what that means, but I knew that was not a safe thing to share with the person that I had married. And I didn't feel like I was safe to get out. And so then it just wasn't a possibility in my mind. And so then there had to be some sort of like, okay, well, either I like make this break and live authentically, or I give it more time. And of course, because of societal pressures and religious views, it was like, well, I chose this. I chose to get married. Even though I kind of knew, I chose. So I'm like, I'll give it a year. Like if things get better, if they're okay, whatever. It was a way of not having to take action and put myself into a vulnerable situation, which I was already in. But I don't fault myself for choosing certain things in the spaces that I was in.
Good.
But just recognizing it. In that moment, in that passing moment, I just knew that it meant I had to hide this, and it was really painful. And I think I kind of disconnected a little bit more from life at that point, and things really went downhill in that relationship. And finally, he broke it off when I was really thankful. Oh yeah,
that's news to me.
Oh yeah. He broke it off.
Let's talk this moment, and then we'll talk about this book.
So, yeah, that was. I had a moment of just being like, oh shit, okay, I really am queer. Maybe divorce is a possibility, but I didn't feel like I could initiate it, or like for like the view of others' comfortability or views, but also within the relationship, I did not hold the power. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like there were power dynamics that made me feel unsafe. And so, and I truly believe if I had been the one to initiate it, there would have been problems.
Okay.
Because that is a challenge of ego.
Sure.
He decided it, so that's fine. And I think at a certain point, that's where it, and yeah. But so then coming out of that, I just was like, I knew that I was going to come out. I knew that I was going to figure out who I was. I didn't know when I was going to come out, but I knew that I was like, I'm done with men, which I still mostly feel.
Can I force your hand here? For
Yes,
just a quick second?
please, always.
This moment.
Yes.
Maybe I'm stepping on your toes.
No, I can share it.
Yeah, are you comfortable?
It's like I said, like it doesn't seem like this big thing,
but it matters.
But it matters. My family, I always knew that they didn't like him. But
neither did your friends.
Neither did.
Go ahead.
But for the most part, no one said anything.
Yeah,
they just were like silently, like,
yeah.
Don't. We're gonna talk about how bad it is, but it's your choice. We're afraid you're gonna get further away if we say anything.
But also, there's a Christian background where it's like, if your family doesn't like your partner. And they're rooting for your divorce? That's pretty hypocritical as a Christian.
Absolutely.
If you're rooting for a divorce?
Right, but yeah. Agreed.
In the most hardline views of Christianity, divorce is not an option.
No, I agreed. And it was never an option in my family until my parents got a divorce. And it's still not like a promoted option. But there is a little bit more of an understanding of like, okay, sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Okay, good.
And they did not like him at all, but yeah, just the choice of being silent and not saying anything outwardly, or really calling me in and saying like, what is happening? Like, you don't just, tell me about this. Right. No, that everyone was just like, okay, we're just going to let Kaci do it without actually engaging in like any real conversation with me about my actual relationship, how I was experiencing it, if I was happy, if, there was, it was just like, Kaci does what they do. We have the feelings about it. We're worried for them, but we don't need to get in their life about it. Right. So it was just, I don't know.
This moment. The moment.
Yes. So my sister-in-law, we were talking about something about school benefits because he was in the military. So we were just, at the time we're talking about that because I was considering doing some classes or something. And I was like, well, it would be covered mostly because of his like stuff. And my sister-in-law said something, which I, like, it's really funny, but she was like, oh yeah, get those benefits while you can. Like, while you're still married or something, something along those lines. And it was some little passing thing. And my brother was like, Carmen, like, and like, it broke something, but not in a, like, it hurt me to hear her say that because of him, but it hurt me to hear her say that because it was like,
they know we're not going to last.
It was like confirmation of like, yeah, I've known that this wasn't going to last. And I knew it from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. I did. I knew it before we got married. I knew it wasn't going to last, but I didn't have agency over my life in that point of time.
Can I, only because this is where the ADHD comes in. Mm-hmm. This is kind of a tangent here. I am definitely going to pick up on where you left off. But I wrote mm-hmm. right after marriage, mm-hmm. I put divorce mm-hmm. as a note because Kaci and I have both been married and we've both been divorced. Mm-hmm. And there's a thing that I say often, I'm realizing now as I'm about to say it. I could cry when I talk about this. I don't think that I will. And I don't know if that's growth or repression. I haven't decided yet.
I think it's a daily, momentary...
Maybe repression is growth. I don't know.
I think at certain times it can be.
But simply to relate.
Mm-hmm.
I knew very early on in my marriage that this was a loveless marriage.
Yeah.
And that the only reason we were together was because of optics.
Mm-hmm.
And that it would hurt more to tell people that it didn't last than to tell people or than to stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we stayed in it fully knowing that neither of us loved each other. And I don't know if...
I think, that's pretty similar, I would say.
Yeah, I say this only to relate in that how tragic is it that a thing as beautiful, even removed from religion, as beautiful as, even if you remove the word marriage, a domestic partnership, as a lifelong partnership, that is a beautiful concept.
Yeah. And we are deluded into thinking that these really loveless, unsafe spaces are what real relationships feel like.
Yes.
And are what we should accept and should just accept because that's what it is. That's what life is.
From a straight man's perspective, so many times you'd hear, yeah, the wife's crazy, or yeah, that's what you do, or whatever. Like, yeah, you hear so many toxic stories about. Again, I'm only speaking from my own perspective here about how like men have to stick it out in relationships with women who are emotionally abusive towards them. And again, this is it can of course be flipped.
It goes both ways.
Yep. Yeah. But like, well, you got to stick it out because that's just what marriage is. And it's like, but I'm not receiving love. I need love, and I'm not receiving it anywhere. And I see everyone around me knowing full well we're both unhappy. Yeah. It's just sad. It's tragic.
That feels so real. And receiving it anywhere, it feels really relatable as well, because it really is like, I think some people experience it to some levels, and maybe with most of the people. So like maybe they do have friends that feel that connection with, that love with. Maybe they've got some, like their parents, maybe their family. Like,
but intimate love is so different.
Absolutely. But I think that there's certain levels of people who have it in other ways that allow them to accept it in romantic relationships or something, and they're like comfortable with that because they have what they need in some ways here, they have what they want or need in other ways, right? I think both of us are coming from spaces where we felt desperate for that thing because we were deprived of it.
And that we stuck around in it because the optics of not being in it felt embarrassing. And that's not why you should stay in a relationship.
I don't think that is why I stayed in the relationship. Like, I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a factor for me. I get it.
Sure.
For me, it was more about feeling stuck in a place that I had no control over, almost. That I didn't feel... Yeah. I felt there was such a strong power dynamic that I did not feel safe at a certain point, even voicing like anything.
Sure.
So it's like it wasn't a place that I felt I could make moves in and decide when things ended or when things, So it's, Well,
on a timeline, the marriage happens. The divorce happens.
Divorce happens. Best time of my life.
Right. Well.
Up until that point.
Did you know that then? Like when you were out, that like, I'm free?
It was like 1 week of really intense emotions, and it wasn't about him. It wasn't about intense emotions of like, I'm going to miss him. I'm going to there was none of that, but it was very intense emotions about, again, being thrown into a whole new life.
Can I pick up real fast?
Yeah.
And I want to toss it right back to you. This is only for relating. You're desperate to be loved, so you get married.
Yeah.
You're desperate to be loved so you don't get divorced. You finally get divorced. And you're like, yes, I'm free from this individual.
Yes.
I'm still desperate to be loved.
Yeah.
That's where divorce hurt me.
Yes. I will say, I think for me, I had an understanding by that point of like this idea of life in whole. And at this moment, like men were like, I had an understanding of how a little bit more of like, oh yeah, kind of like, of course you're gay, of course, sure. Like of course this didn't work, of course you chose someone who wouldn't work.
Okay, so this was
blah blah blah, you know, like
clarifying.
It was absolutely clarifying. I learned.
We just heard cats aggressively going at it.
That sounded like Sinisa. Well, I'm assuming Sinisa.
Oh, you have a cat that gets bullied by other cats, isn't that right?
No, she has her own room. Yes, but she has her own room. No, this is play.
Okay,
this is play. And Cusco might be annoyed. That might be an annoyed sound.
I see.
But there are times where she sounds like she is dying, and we see her, and she is like above him, like this, and she is like, like
okay, all right,
ridiculous.
All right.
So you can't trust. You go to the sounds because it's so intense.
Yeah,
you check every time.
You realize that the power play is flipped from what you thought it was. Yes.
She is sneaky.
Anyway.
So, yeah. So it was very clarifying. It brought me. It was like a spiritual awakening. I think. Okay. I think. So when we had gotten married, after that moment, I was like really depressed. I was always depressed, but more so. And I went on a trip with some friends, with a friend and a few other people to Sedona for like a yoga trip thing. And it was a lot of things. I got a lot out of it because of what I brought into it of like curiosity and energy and excitement. But that really opened up some spiritual stuff for me, and it helped me through that moment, but it also was like kind of stored waiting to like, I knew I wasn't safe in that space in that relationship to explore myself without being like under view.
Right.
So it unintentionally, I repressed my like excitement about it, lost a lot of it. But when we got divorced, when we split, like some of that started coming back. My like excitement about like some of the spiritual things and like, just discovering what life meant for me in all of the ways. So I felt like it was my time to frickin' like explore life.
Can I ask real fast?
Yes.
And it doesn't need to be a whole thing here, but my understanding of just through being your friend during these on and off periods of time is that like growing up, religion was intimately part of your life, whether you wanted it to be or not.
Right.
It was just part of your everyday.
Yeah.
Then before the marriage, this is just like after high school, but the period of time between after high school and marriage, your involvement in religion was not, or the church was not.
So between graduating high school and like 20, I was not really
right. You weren't active in the church.
In anything.
But then when you got married, you were back in the
20,
church.
Yeah, at 20, I went to YWAM, did the whole thing.
Right. We don't need to talk about that. That's the whole thing. But I say this in a pointed way that like religion, then absence of religion, then religion.
And then religion, and then choosing to stay in it again because I needed the people around me.
Right. It was more of a community thing, not a God thing.
It was a community thing as in, this is my tie to my family. This is what is required of me to be an accepted part of this family. So I just went along with it. I was kind of into it in a way of like, I love to sing. I love music. So I chose to be part of the band. It was not about God. It was not about what was happening. It was about being able to like explore a part of me. And I know that that's similar to
I just want to, it's not part of my experience. Well, it is, I suppose, but it's just in that we talked about this just a little bit ago before we started rolling on the podcast, that I forgot how like that was kind of a period of our friendship that formed our friendship, that like we performed together in front of people.
But that was when we were in high school still.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That like
your brother was in the band when I was there later.
I forgot about that until you said that. Not that he listens. We're just not going to talk about that. I just mean performatively.
Yes.
That is kind of a reason why I felt like I belonged, is because people liked watching me perform.
Right.
And you and I were...
You realize, this isn't God, this is just my love of music.
This is ego. This isn't God, this is ego. But
it's also like... Yeah, like...
It fed into our desire to be loved. We wanted to be recognized for our abilities, our talents, our whatever.
Like who we are,
And who we are. And I just as an aside, that's a thing that I forgot, is that like you and I used to release covers. We used to put covers on YouTube, and like we used to sing Christian songs in front of other people. Like it's just, that's cool. I forgot about that. But sorry, continue. Your retreat with your friends after
retreat with so that was before getting divorced.
But separated.
That was the beginning of the year that we got divorced. We got split up in the end.
Oh, okay.
This is before I jumped back a little.
Okay, that's fine.
Went to Sedona. It was really beautiful. It was a lot of things that I needed, but it was also like confirmation that like it was bad. Like I felt so relieved when I was there, and going back home to that situation was really hard. And then the next 6 months probably until he broke it off were really difficult, very emotionally painful.
I'm so sorry to keep stepping on your toes. I didn't know that he broke it off.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to talk about, I don't want to talk about the relationship.
Yeah.
But do you think that this was done as like, this person doesn't love me anymore, so I need to get divorced? Or was it like, I'm doing them a favor? Or like, what was it?
That is, I think there's multiple, I've heard it said as, I am rarely one-minded about anything.
Sure.
I think, yes, on a certain level, he was like, I deserve better than this. They don't they don't want to be around me. They don't want to come to the things that I have going on. They never listen to me. They don't remember anything. They blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sure in his mind, he justified all of the things, right? And
what do you believe the truth to be?
Oh, he found someone else.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I don't think... Yeah, whatever. He found someone... At least I know that they were talking before he broke off of me.
Okay. That might be all I need you to talk about. I just
So that was the like, I think that was an excuse. Also,
I see.
I think it was like for him, like, okay, well, or an excuse or a way of like moving on is okay. I got the next person lined up. Right. I don't know. We could speculate.
Well, that's where I relate.
I have theories, but
that's where I relate in a big way to that one. So,
yeah,
I
mean, I think to a certain extent, when you're using people's emotional states when you're using people to your own gain and using their emotional states, you have a next one lined up often because you don't.
You filled a role in this person's life that they found someone to fill in that role.
And because I clearly wasn't going to and couldn't do it.
Right.
So then, okay, I don't say this in like a I am pained by this way, but like throw the person away. Oh, this is a useless and genuinely, I think I probably felt useless because I was in such an emotionally like deflated date that I couldn't show up in any real way. So like this person doesn't fight for anything. They don't talk about anything. Right. They don't do it. Like, why am I here?
Right.
Fair. But also
when you're the person,
you put me
it
there.
hurts to like,
so,
yeah.
Whatever. But regardless of that, I say all of this with full, I don't resent him for breaking up with me or for having someone not lined up or any of those things. I am so thankful that the break happened.
Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry.
No.
This is again referencing the last episode, which I was talking about addictions, and then I ended the episode while talking about toxic codependency as an addiction. I am not separate from that. One of the things that I think it was maybe one of the ending points that I made, it might have even been the clip that I used to promote the episode, was that in a toxic codependency, there is this desperation. I might even be reiterating exactly what I said here, but like I'm role playing here in that as a toxic codependent person, you say, you like Kaci, you're my partner in this situation. You hate me. And you would hate the optics of what it would look like if you left me. So you want me to leave me, but I'm not going to do that. Because I love you, but I know that you hate me. And so if you leave me, it'll just confirm these suspicions I have about yourself. But also, once that severance finally comes, it's like, man, you just did me a favor.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really, that's what it came to. It was literally 1 week. And the way that I handle things, process things has always been very different timing than other people probably usually. I often mourn things before they are done, not realizing that that's what I'm doing.
You just helped me recognize something in myself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because by the end, I knew it was the end, even before it was official. And so I think that there's, like, the dam broke. The rest of the pain and the fear and the tears and everything came out. And that was a really fucking hard week of literally in that state where I was at work and I'd answer the phone and be fine, not fine, but like be talking fine. And then literally as soon as I heard the click, I was bursting in tears. There's nothing to, and it wasn't just like, okay, it was like almost convulsing cry after that. Like that's how behind the surface it was, you know?
Yeah.
But again, it was not a like this person thing. It was just it's a realization of what I was dealing with, what I was going through, and the pain of it, and then the freedom that was coming.
Well, and again, this is just to relate my own personal experience that I've talked about many times on this podcast, is I was in that exact same situation. I was in a clearly loveless marriage that I don't fault this person for feeling the way that they felt about it. I fault them for the way that they handled our relationship while it was happening. Yeah, but there was this like desperation for like, I don't have the courage. Now this is wrong of me. I'm not saying it's wrong objectively in everybody, but it was wrong of me to not have the courage to end things myself.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was like desperate for them to just do it.
I feel that, yeah.
But the difference was, as soon as they finally did it, I ran away to New York.
Yes.
And I left everyone and everything that I left behind, or that I had ever loved behind, that ever knew me. So I just went from like, again, like I said before, it's like, I am desperate to be loved, therefore I get married. Now I'm in a loveless marriage, and again I am desperate to be loved. And then this person finally divorces me, which needed to happen, and now I'm desperate to be loved again, but now I'm alone.
Yeah. See, and I think for me, I wasn't necessarily feeling that end part about the aloneness. I think in a way it was of like, okay, I am alone again. What does this mean?
Okay.
But it wasn't necessarily of the like pressures of having someone or the feeling like I had to be with someone. It was more of the openness of like, oh, I get to do whatever I want with whoever I want. Like, it was more opportunity out there because I was exploring this whole side of me that was like this whole part of me that was just coming out. Yeah, I didn't necessarily feel I'm afraid of being alone. I think 4 years with someone, and I knew that I had a lot of processing to do with that, so I wasn't like intentionally going into anything.
Sure.
And then I moved out and got an apartment with people I met on Facebook, and they're some of my best friends. And it was like the most open, loving, living situation not any of us had ever been in. And so then it was like, oh, okay, I'm free to like just be. And there was a little bit of the loneliness, but it wasn't necessarily of like, I need to be with someone. It was more like, I just need to know that like there's something out there for me.
Do you think there was hesitation to recognize, and again, because I think I am ultimately going to call this episode a timeline of queerness, just because I think that's fun.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to not just flirt with the idea of these quote unquote, up until this point, non-traditional views of love and relationships? When did that start to become more of a reality of like when did you start to accept these things by yourself?
I would say pretty early on. When I first had that like moment interaction with that person where we like caught each other's eyes.
Well,
that led to me feeling a lot of the like, how do I fit this into what I've been told is right and all of that. And at a certain point I was like, okay, I am okay with myself and I'm okay with other people being queer. It was still hidden underneath the things, you know. Right. I came to an acceptance of it very early, just not the courage necessarily to live it.
Well, I'm gonna be pointed like I was before. Was there a coming out for you?
Yeah,
a public coming out for you. Not that like I've decided, hey Facebook, I've decided to tell you. Yeah.
I had a few specific conversations with people that I wanted to tell. My siblings, my dad. Beyond that, no. But I just started living life as myself. And
I'm sorry.
Obviously, dating someone and all of this.
I'm gonna beep this.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just gonna type it.
That's.
You don't need to say this person's name.
Okay.
But you said that you told this person.
Oh yeah.
And that they didn't take it as well as you thought they would. Is that correct?
Oh no, they took that fine. So I did tell that person. That was probably back in those days where I had just had that like moment of eye contact with that person that felt like something. I was just starting to realize. I realized that like, okay, maybe I'm bi or something. I like guys and girls, whatever. And I did tell her, and she was fine with it.
I have a memory of you telling me that you told this person something and they did not take it like you thought they would. Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily about like my identity. It was more that I was sharing with her some of the experiences that I was having dating I was technically still getting divorced, even though there was obviously nothing connected there with me and him. But it seemed to me that she had some idea of marriage that meant that even though it was loveless, even though you're like queer exploring yourself, even though but because you are still married, you can't be having sex with someone.
This clarifies many things about this person that I
it's like being open to the world, but also being like so close-minded about this one aspect that you can't. I don't know. Anyway, it just.
We'll talk about that after the podcast.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because I want to talk about that. But.
Yeah. So I told like my siblings, and they all pretty much. Well, my brother and his. Well, I don't have to go through it. But yeah, generally speaking, they were good. Like
I want to ask
good
him.
Receptions of me stating my queerness. One of my siblings later on started voicing some opposing views. Was
there a first person or a first articulation of I am not a straight person? Was there that type of like
I think
cliche moment?
The first person I ever told was a friend that
not that friend.
A friend that I had in Cadillac, who was a really good friend, like my closest friend at the time, and still a good friend. But and that was good. It was fine. Like, did
it feel like you needed to get it off your chest? So therefore, I'm going to tell this person, or was it just like a casual like?
Oh, it was kind of a casual thing. I think they had mentioned. I don't remember. We were talking about something, and some random thing came up about someone being bi or something, and then I think it was just like, yeah, like I think I am too, or something, you know.
Did you realize in the moment
that
how important that moment is for you?
You know,
or was for you?
Because
up until that point, I'm sorry, that there is a repression of that statement.
I think
until it is uttered.
It felt big, but it also was like not something we talked about beyond that conversation. Okay. So it was something that I like got out and was accepted, but it still wasn't more than that, even in my own daily life.
Sure.
You know. So I don't know. That moment was good, and it was, but it doesn't feel like one of those like defining moments.
Reflecting on it, do you think that that's a big moment?
I think it is a big moment because I had the comfortability with that person, the safety with that person, and the ability to like say something like that with my full chest and just be it. I think that's really a really good moment, but those moments were very few and far between. And and we're getting closer to, my goal is embodying that more regularly. But I think at the time, I don't know. I think it was also one of those things that like, yeah, that felt good, but I don't feel it in any other space in my life other than that one time where I had the conversation. So I think it got buried under a lot of the rest of the things. Yeah.
So existing on this timeline of queerness, there is the relationship side of men and women and being attracted to men and women. But then there comes a not just accepting of a new self, but a shedding of a former self. And a lot of that comes with your identity as a woman.
Yeah.
When did that even enter the realm of possibility for you?
When Lourdes and I first met.
Your partner now?
Yes, my partner. When we met at the beginning of 2020, I think around that time, before that probably some, but there was a lot more coming into my feed about queerness and non-binary people, and I was starting to intentionally follow queer people, so I was seeing more things, and so I think just my world again was like expanded by language and by visibility of other non-binary people. That was like, oh my God, like that's me. So yeah, I would say early in Lourdes and I meeting, I told her, like, I think I'm non-binary. Like, yeah.
What does that phrase kind of mean to you, though? Because there is this assumption that man equals masculinity and woman equals femininity.
Yeah.
But the shedding of the man or woman does not mean the shedding of femininity or masculinity.
No. And I think that's where, like, gender and gender expression are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, like you're saying, often keep them so closely together.
Yeah.
It's been a journey of, for the first while, being very still.
The battery just died, so if we reiterate something we just said, I apologize. But you were saying that often those two terms are conflated,
yes.
Gender expression.
Like, people just refuse to, or have not heard or understood.
Ignorance plays a big part of this.
It does. Sometimes it is chosen, but
correct.
That's a whole other side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, it was a whole journey. It was me playing very heavily into masculine presentation, as well as feeling very not male, not as in a man, but taking on the energy that we call masculine. And then really starting to reclaim things that felt right, like earrings. I hadn't worn long earrings in a really long time, because they felt, I didn't like how I was being perceived while I wore them. And so I was uncomfortable with how I was perceived. So I didn't. And then at a certain point, I tried a pair on, and I remembered how, like, I like the weight, how calming it is, how much I like hearing them, how much, like, oh my God, like, this is something that I really enjoy, and I'm denying this of myself. It is like almost like a sensory need in some cases, denying this thing that I enjoy and I need because of other people's views. So I've started to reclaim certain parts of what people see as femininity, as well as holding on to some of the more masculine parts of myself that have always been there but were repressed for a long time.
So a big part of, and again, pardon the expression, but a big part of where we grew up mm-hmm. meant that you fit the quote-unquote mm-hmm. tomboy personality, right? You were the farm...
The crummy little dirty child in the room with the greasy hair and
right.
wore the same outfit for a week. I mean,
right.
This is, again, layers of neurodiversity
sure.
and children being kids and
so
whatever. But
when it comes to literally just that word, mm-hmm. like woman,
mm-hmm.
at what point did that become not just a possibility, but like I am not this,
mm-hmm.
or was it a clear-cut moment, or was it just a slow developing
I think it
understanding?
Was kind of a slow developing and kind of like understanding of being able to reframe my experiences as a child under this lens of like, oh, this makes sense. Like, my experiences are true to like how I am currently feeling of like in that moment, how I was currently feeling of like identifying with non-binary.
In the most ignorant of ways, and I'm not coming at this from this perspective, I'm just saying there is an ignorant perspective where gender is simply about the bathroom you use.
Yeah.
It's clearly much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And this, again, coming from a person who doesn't feel uncomfortable identifying as a man. Like, I feel it's very, maybe this is really douchey of me to just take the mantle of. But like, as a person who perceives what's happening culturally as like, I tried to avoid this phrase earlier, but I think now it applies. Identity politics. This is not to play into identity politics. Me, as a person who, again, is comfortable referring to themselves as a man, that, like, there is a perception that, like, I'll just point this back at us in general. There is a perception that, like, gender itself as a construct, which it certainly is to a degree, that just, like...
it is a construct.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But there are, like, when it comes to terms that, like, we shouldn't refer to men and women as whatever. But for me, as a man, it feels important for me to reclaim the mantle of man.
You're redefining what it is to be a man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In that, like, you know, if from the beginning there wasn't man and woman, there was just human being, then it wouldn't feel so important to me to be like, no, I am a man.
Right.
But, like, when I perceive men as being this binary thing that is referred to as toxic, like toxic masculinity, like that's dangerous to, well, let me rephrase. I'm sick of what men are perceived as, therefore it is my responsibility as what I believe to be a progressive man to reclaim that mantle of manhood, to say, no, that's not what men are.
Right. Men are
toxic men do that.
Yes.
That does not mean that man is toxic. And
I get that. I think it can be I get it.
It's maybe not even important for me to say that. I don't know.
I think you're over-explaining your reason for saying something that you maybe didn't fully... Like, I think you're saying, like, you are comfortable in your masculinity, and it is sometimes seen as a negative thing to claim.
I'm not...
Because of...
Well, to be clear, this is sort of what I meant about in the flip side, that, like, the tying of manhood to masculinity isn't appropriate.
No.
Because oftentimes as a person who identifies as straight and as a man, I'm more in touch with traditional feminine qualities that, like, aren't embarrassing to me. Like, a man, there can be a feminine straight man. Absolutely. There can be a masculine straight woman. These things aren't tied to each other in a binary sense.
Absolutely.
Which is, like, I feel like there are men who feel like they are threatened by this. Absolutely. There is a growing understanding of gender and masculinity and femininity, that they feel like their manhood is tied to their masculinity.
Yes.
Where it's like, I am a man who isn't defined by his masculinity. You know? So it's not like, it's not crucial to me to defend my gender. It's crucial to me to defend
you within your gender identity.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. I hear you. I'm glad that we kept going with that, because I think at the beginning of that, I was hearing it come out in a way that was...
There's a defensive way to come about that.
Right. And I think that's where I was hearing it from at the beginning of, like, I'm trying to... I could... Because I do the same thing where I, like, talk about things and, like, justify things before I, like, fully say the thing. Yeah. And so then I'm, like, following that. I'm hearing you. Yeah. I'm hearing you.
I'm not.
I think that completely makes sense. And I think that there is always space for people to claim the gender that they identify with. And
not claim a gender. That's kind of what I mean.
But that's what I'm... Yeah. Decide for themselves.
Right. I'm not saying this to defend how I choose to identify. I'm saying that as a straight man, I'm ceding the fact that my gender has nothing to do with how I identify on a personality basis.
Well, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. I think that there is...
I don't want you to feel like maybe I'm articulating it in the wrong way. That I don't want you. Maybe it sounds like I'm trying to do the opposite of what it feels like many men are doing right now. In that they're like, because they feel like their manhood is threatened by this growing idea or this growing understanding of what gender is, that like, I'm just trying to reiterate for listeners, not for myself, that like, in the same way that I believe my identity as a man has nothing to do with how masculine or feminine I am, that is exactly how I perceive it, and correct me if I'm wrong, how people who identify as non-binary or choose not to identify, in that like, it has nothing to do with their masculinity or their femininity.
I would say generally, I think that we can't generalize. I think that
that's
there is
the point that I'm trying to make. We can't generalize
because I know that there are people who are non-binary but who feel very driven to present androgynously or feel like they have to still present a specific way to be seen. So I think in that way it's like, but the flip side of that, not just non-binary or like man and woman, this is also trans women, trans men. Oh, absolutely.
That like, there is a perception that a trans woman must therefore be a feminine person with X genitalia. It has nothing to do with it. That like a trans woman can completely exist outside the confines of like femininity and masculinity. It's not a like pointed thing. And now I'm just rambling and I feel like I'm stepping on my own toes, and I just mean, I don't know.
I feel like you're trying to defend something that no one is.
No, not defend. I'm trying to stop the defending of like why do we feel like it's so important to defend our gender by saying, but I'm masculine or I'm feminine.
Yes.
Both things are a spectrum, not just.
Absolutely. Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're agreeing on the same thing.
We are.
And arguing about it. No, we're not arguing, but I think I'm confused by. I do this a lot where I re-say things over and over to make sure my point is clear. And that's where I feel like maybe we're at. I
am, while seeing that we are in full agreement, I'm not articulating what I mean to say. I feel like I'm articulating things for other people that feel like they must articulate. That like, there is a listener that exists. That
and I think that's where I'm confused by the conversation because I'm trying to relate to what we're talking about.
Do we agree that gender is a construct?
100%.
Then I think we're.
That's what I. That's I mean, I think that's. Yeah. I think that's where I was going.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I stepped on your toes there.
I think it's absolute. I mean, I believe full-heartedly that it is something that has been made up.
Yes.
That has been used to empower a few people and disempower everyone else. And I think that I agree there is like to you're going a step further than acknowledging toxic masculinity by saying, yes, there are men that are toxic, but I'm redefining what that means. And I think that because we have to play into this, in a way, we are playing into this structure that is put up on us.
Stop me if I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. But I think what I'm trying to say is that while fully agreeing that gender is a construct, it wouldn't, if today there was a law that was passed that we cannot use phrases like man or woman, I would have no issue with that.
Right.
But because that is currently not the state, that's why I don't feel pressured. That's why I think it's silly for straight men or straight women to feel like they are being pressured to justify their gender by saying, but I'm this or but I'm that. When I'm just reiterating that both non-binary people and straight people feel are capable of feeling the same way, that like it's irrelevant to who we to the feelings. I'm too old-fashioned.
I really feel like I understand what you're getting at, but I think that it might not be a necessary part.
You're right. You're probably right. Yeah. You're almost certainly right. I feel like I'm maybe just saying things to say things.
Well, I think it started out being somewhat relevant, but I think because we're so similar sometimes and hung up on what I understood about what you're saying about this thing and what, that it gets lost, and then we're just talking about the thing.
You're right. It feels like maybe I'm less speaking to Kaci and more speaking to people that are listening.
And that's where I get caught up of being like, I don't understand what we're talking about because I feel like I'm missing something.
Sure. Well,
so I think I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you said it.
Well, past that. Sorry, unless did I? I had a note here because because my last phase is just current state of affairs. I'm gonna ask you a very pointed question that you don't necessarily need to say yes or no to.
Okay.
I want you to think about it for as long as you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. Are you happy?
Oh, very
Happy?
happy. Oh yeah. I am happy, but I am also at a lot more peace than I've ever been. And I think that brings on a lot of happiness as well. I think I am a person who has always kept things, my joy for things with me close, because it's something that has always provided me some sense of relief and happiness when everything around me was very much the opposite of that. So through getting divorced and really discovering myself and what life actually is and can be, I dove into those things that feel like going out and being in nature, photography, singing. Like I dove into the things that feel like deep connection with myself. And I have an amazing partner who is also on her own journey with finding peace and with all of the things. And so we hold space for each other in that. So I think developing or setting a safe space to just being and accepting the desires that come and the things that come and following those has brought me to a lot of like trust in myself and peace in knowing that I'm in a place where I don't have to fight to be seen or to not be seen.
In as general of a term, or as general of terms as we can put it, what is your challenge right now when it comes to understanding yourself? Like, what is there that you've yet to, and maybe this is like a double negative in that like you can't know what you don't know.
Right.
But like,
yeah, I think I'm always getting into deeper layers of things. Sometimes that is like big chunks, a lot of layers at once. Sometimes it's little ones here and there on different things. The current thing that is sitting with me, it's more to do with how, because I know that society is not built for my brain to thrive. And I'm working and I love my job and I love the organization that I work for. And I'm very happy in my role, but it has come with a lot of things that I am still learning about myself and how to manage myself and how to find fulfillment without maybe having someone else checking off things on a task list. Yeah. It's just like, it is a whole side of life that I've never had the freedom to learn about myself. And so that is currently like my biggest struggle, I guess, is just like figuring that what that means for myself to do it the best that I can, the healthiest that I can. But even then, like I'm really happy in the freedom that I have.
You're happy.
Yeah.
Good. What's next for you? What do you think is what is the next thing that you're working on? And this is maybe just a doubling down on what you just said, but like, what is your focus right now? Like, if you had a overarching focus.
I would say my overarching focus is learning. I think there's a couple.
Okay.
Learning to plan for the future. I have never had never been someone who could like really picture a future of what that could actually look like for me. But
man, I have not related to anything more than what you just said. And I didn't even think.
It's wild.
I don't think about the future. All I've got, I'm terrified of.
Right.
In a bad way. I don't think about the future. I should. Yeah.
Sure. And there are times where I do, but it's always me having to like put my mind in that frame rather than being like, ooh, I'm gonna live in this house for a long time. Like, this is what I'm learning. I think part of it is being in a set place for the foreseeable future. Part of it, I think, is being settled into a healthy relationship, being settled into like finding peace within myself, regardless of what else is going on. That has brought me to like living more in the moment, which allows me to actually think about the future rather than being so afraid of the moment that I'm in and being aware of what could possibly come at me and have to be vigilant for. That takes up a lot of space that can't open until you accept that you are in a safe space.
In very blunt terms, because I also see that we only have minutes left anyway on this clip, and it's time. Maybe this is a really somber, this is a bummer of a way to mention it. Sorry, go ahead.
Did I answer your last question? I don't think I did.
Sort of. You said that, I said, what is your next focus? And you said planning for the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Planning for the future. But
and not even
also,
allowing yourself to plan for the future.
Yes. And that also includes like some of the work stuff, but also creative things.
That's good. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I
have some ideas for some things.
That you're keeping close to the chest?
No. I'll talk to you about them later. They're not brand things, but they're just, I
just want to relate to what you just said, and maybe it's the shittiest way to end a podcast, so I'll find a more healthy way to round it out. But
we're real.
As a chronically depressed person, I am not always sad, but I am rarely happy. And this is another one of those things where I feel like I could cry about it, but I'm going to really try not to.
You can, though.
I appreciate that. And for what it's worth, I know that I can here in this home. And I appreciate you for that. I oftentimes believe that tomorrow is my last day. Like, in the saddest, most, like, as in...
You're living today like it is?
No.
Okay, as in
I'm a suicidal person. And that,
like, what if I feel this way tomorrow and I choose...
Exactly. Like, I am chronically depressed in that, like, today's probably going to be the last day I'm happy. Because there's no way I'm happy tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Like this, sure, I feel kind of good today, but it's not going to last and I'm going to...
Exactly. Yeah. So the ability to even think about the future is a skill that I'm trying to learn in that, like, if I'm speaking in just likely terms, I am likely, and I'm sorry that this is kind of blunt, I am likely not going to kill myself tomorrow. I am likely not. It's probably not going to happen because the only time I want to kill myself is when I want to kill myself. You know what I mean? Like,
right. You are worried about something that you are not yet in the place of actually feeling, but you know that you can get there. So it's looming over the time that you currently are having, even though it is happy and peaceful and what you want. It's also a looming fear of not being in control.
Right. It is a gray sky where it's like, man, it's probably going to rain, but it's not yet. I should probably go outside before it does. I'm just trying to put myself outside more in that, like, I must believe that a future exists so that I can live in it.
Yep. Start writing it down. Like, literally, just even if it's like the most random idea. I want to move to wherever when I'm 50. Write it down.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's something that you can just see as like, oh yeah, there's future. There's things to think about.
It is a skill to acknowledge that the future exists. So you saying that, I appreciate, even if you didn't mean it in that way, I appreciate you saying that is a thing.
It's something that I am learning. Absolutely. It's really hard. I think that there are times where, again, we have such limited views on life because of our circumstances, because of the people who we're with, sheltering, whatever, that limit our ability to see ourselves within the future. We don't have views of ourselves out there. I think now we do, but at the time when we were developing and learning who we were, we didn't have representation out there of this, right? Of people having real conversations and real, change.
Per this clip, even though if it just happens to roll past 4 minutes, I'll fix it. But I've taken up too much of your time, even if you don't believe so. It's late. I don't know if it's important. I don't know if it's necessary for me to, but I feel it's important to me to apologize for my ignorance. Just in conversations, not. This is not me defending myself. This is more reiterating that, like, I truly see you as one of my closest friends. You probably know more about the me now than most people in my life.
Yeah. Same.
But I don't feel like I know as much about you as you know about me. And so the way that I am talking to you about how you identify or how you see yourself or anyone else, it is out of ignorance.
It's out of curiosity.
It is out of curiosity, but also, like, when I feel like I'm speaking for an audience, I feel like I speak in these general terms. And maybe this is just my internal monologue, but also, like, even in just that, like, weird little hang up about, like, how I'm like, no, I'm a man and I'm comfortable with that. Like,
I know.
That is out of ignorance. And I think it's important for not just me, but for listeners to challenge themselves to push past that ignorance and not be afraid of it, because, like, again, I see you as one of my closest friends, and there's a part of me that, like, while wanting to know more about you, doesn't want to, like, offend you or step on your toes or whatever. And I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I understand what you are being aware of, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
I, as a person, am generally very honest about where I'm at with things. Often people don't ask, and so then, but I'm always open to talking about things, and if I don't feel comfortable, I will say it.
Right.
But I understand it's like learning to speak a new language, and you're like, oh, but I'm going to sound so stupid trying to say this thing.
That's exactly.
And I am just to say, I am not out here judging anyone for not understanding, because I also, like, I fuck up on people's pronouns all the goddamn time. People that I have, like, been talking about that I know of on TV or whatever for years, and I still fuck up because my brain learned a thing, and it's hard to be consistent on some things. But all you have to do is catch yourself, be open to be okay with being wrong. I know some people are very defensive in the way that I shouldn't say defensive. it is very painful for some people to be talked to in certain ways. So I understand I get it and I appreciate that. Personally, love talking about it. Understand where you're coming from and want to hold space for you to like have moments where you're struggling through what you're saying or processing, because that's how you unlearn things. You say things and then you're like, that didn't sound how I wanted to say it, but that's the words that I have. Like that happens. And then it's like, oh, what did I really mean by that? Where is that coming from?
Quick thing. We have 20 seconds, so I'm just clipping real fast.
Perfect. So, yeah, I understand, and I hold space for that process because I've had to do the same thing. And so I'm not expecting other people to be at the same place. I just I hope for honesty and openness to actually discussing things and hearing. Believing my experience, and that's what you do. And so I think I think the more that you talk and we talk about these things and you ask the questions, I hope that you get more comfortable asking, because it's really like, for me, it's just another topic because it is my life. It is who I am. So it is a topic that I don't share with everyone, but I am willing to share my experiences because I know that it means something to
Well, and you people. Specifically said unlearn. This is both a process and like learning who, because we had a 5-6 year period where I didn't even see you, I didn't talk to you, I didn't know you. This is a process of like learning who you have become, but unlearning ideas about anything in general, just unlearning things that are baked into the human psyche that like are toxic as ideas. So I appreciate your willingness to be a part of that conversation beyond just like a friendship thing.
Absolutely.
As a last quick thing, because I have to say it on camera, this episode is probably going to come out Monday.
Cool.
Which means, and this is aside from everything we've talked about, Saturday, Kalkaska, that is Saturday, April 27th, Midwest Skies is going to be live in Kalkaska for Troutzilla Fest. This is an all-day, all-ages festival, and I believe that Midwest Skies is headlining this one with our alma mater. Well, my alma mater. This is the first people that ever put me up on a stage, Obscurus Diem Productions. I love going back there every single year. So Troutzilla Fest, tickets are free. Show up on April 27th. And there's now a Patreon. You can become a member for $1. It just means you get the episode a day early. I believe that there's going to be more that comes with that. I would like to have exclusive episodes and exclusive clips and exclusive perks. Right now, there's no patrons, so right now there's really no incentive for me to do that.
You can see a lot of the
ums and the uhs. Yeah, maybe we'll dump a lot of ums and uhs that I cut from this episode. So patreon.com, I believe it's /DavidJMund. Check the link in the description. And then just quickly before we go out of there, is there anything that you're engaging with content-wise, something you're obsessed with, something you'd recommend, whether it's music, television, movies, whatever, that is really got your goat right now that you want people to check out? Or anything that you can plug? I don't know.
I don't... Okay. It's not necessarily something I'm like dove in. It's not necessarily divin up. It's not something that I'm currently deep in, but have a deep love for. There's 2 shows.
Don't say The Golden Bachelor because they got divorced.
I was deep into it, but not in the same way. So both by the same writers, and one of the writers is in both shows. Okay. One is called OA.
OA?
OA.
Okay.
And then the other one is called Murder at the End of the World.
Loose pitches for both of them. What's OA? What's Murder at the End of the World?
OA.
What's it stand for?
Original Angel.
Okay.
But we don't really find out why for a little while.
Spoilers.
We don't. Yeah, it is a spoiler, but it's been out for a while.
Okay.
There's 2 seasons, and then I got cut.
So Original Angel.
Original Angel.
Netflix, is that what you said?
OA, yeah.
Okay, Netflix.
And then I think on Hulu is Murder at the Edge of the World. Edge of the World? End of the World?
I'll put it up.
Thank you. Brilliant, both of them. They're mind-bending and intriguing. OA is a little bit more of a slow-moving show. Murder at the End of the World is the murder at the end of the world. So there's a murder, there's investigation, and that's all I'm going to say about it because it is incredible. Please watch it.
Okay.
Especially that. If you're going to watch one, watch that one. That's probably the more broadly understood one.
Okay.
The other one is more on a spiritual level, which is fucking beautiful, but it might not be everyone's. No, it might not resonate with everybody.
Sure.
But, yeah. And then personally, I'm hoping to at some point put up some more photography on my page and.
Can you plug the handle, the page?
Yeah, I think it's.
I'll look it up.
Kaci Ellen's photography.
It is called.
Kaci Ellen's photography.
I don't believe that's true. Yeah, Kaci Ellen's _photography.
Thank you.
Right now there's 7 posts, which is just a shame. There should be so many more than that.
I have so many pictures.
You are an incredibly talented macro photographer. You do a lot more than that, but you end up more pointedly photographing nature.
Yes.
And I love seeing it. I've seen fungus. I've seen bugs. I just opened up a picture of a frog.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen these just from you being like, look at this picture, and it's not public to the world.
Yeah. I have, long story short, my capacity for being visible to the world it took a hit last year in some weird ways. And so then I regressed into myself. So I'm coming out of a more repressed stage. I'm good. I'm in a really good place now, but I just still am like, I don't feel like I can respond to texts. I don't feel like I have the energy. I'm on Instagram often, but the energy to actually put myself out there. It's the confidence and energy. So I am working on it. My hope is to do that. I've been working myself up to like maybe recording some covers and putting
I saw
just doing some things.
Even just that you're thinking about that
and
is
putting
really
it out there. I need it. I need it. I am very solitary, and I need the connection and the affirmation of not like that I am talented, but like that I can connect with people. I do acknowledge it. I think in the last few years since I got this piano, especially, I've really dived into it. I've dived into it and it's always been a healing thing for me, a space to process things, but I've taken it on to learn as much as I can. So I have really been exploring my range and my voice, and my piano skills have gotten better too. So I feel confident in saying that I am talented. It is less about doubts about that, but it is more, it's just it's like asking someone out, right? It's just like, it's that, but what if something goes wrong?
Is it a fear? Not a fear of rejection as much.
It is. It always is. It always is. There's a deep wound there that goes, it's lifelong.
Well,
So I feel very, very, it's very difficult for me to share things without them being asked of me, because I can't often gauge if I am safe or not. Or I can, and I don't know.
Maybe this is for another podcast, but my fear of putting things out has always been not that someone's going to think that I'm bad, but that nobody's going to think anything. That people are just going to be like, yeah, so what? And like, then it's like, well, why'd I put it out? Like, shouldn't I just be more content with my abilities internally rather than seeking external validation? But we deserve external validation.
And we need it, right? Like, we need to hear that what we're doing resonates. It's yes, there is ego in it, but ego is not inherently a bad thing. It is when we let that drive what we do and how we treat people that it is negative. Like, our ego is who we are. It is like knowing yourself. It is having a sense of self. And I think it's different. It is often seen as a negative thing, but I don't, without ego, with a lacking ego, I don't do anything.
That's true.
I create some stuff half-assedly. I enjoy the moments that I'm playing, but I don't dream of more. I don't create things. I don't have the desire to put them out because I don't believe in myself that I can actually do the things to get myself to post it in the first place, right? So it is absolutely, there's a middle ground of ego that.
But now you've got me wanting to, I won't, because again, we must. But I'm at a stage in my life where my ego and my ambition are butting heads. And we're going to talk about this off camera because something happened literally today that destroyed my ego, that could destroy my ambition, that it must not. I can't allow it to. But when my ego takes a hit, it's like, well, then I might as well just give up. But that's the difference between ego and ambition.
Right.
And I just need to I need to find a healthy balance between my ego and ambition. And maybe that's the next podcast episode. I think I'm going to talk about the difference between my ego and ambition. Yeah.
I think it's less about the differences and more about how they are used together.
It certainly can. Well, it certainly
I think
should
that's
be.
Right. I think that is the like, yes, you can focus on, okay, this feels really ambition related. This feels really ego related. Like, it's good to notice those things, but I think where you're going to feel more growth is when you really focus on the use of both of them.
Well, that was great. I love you to death.
I love you too.
Thank you for being my friend.
You are one of my best friends as well. I didn't say it, but...
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I really do think we finally found our stride, and I was nervous as... Listen, as a podcast host...
You're like, oh shit, I can't put any of this.
No, it has nothing to do with all of this, but there are certainly times where it's like, it's my responsibility to point us in a direction, and it's not your responsibility to carry it. So there's this there were many times when you're like, I don't think I'm saying what you want me to say. That makes me feel bad. Not that that's not your fault.
Well, and I think this is part of where we differ in our neurodivergence. And I think this is some of my autism traits coming in, because we're like, okay, we're going to be direct and say the thing. And I'm trying to figure out what the thing actually is. And I can't fully engage in the conversation.
It feels like sometimes your perception is David wants me to say a thing.
Not necessarily say a thing, but there's a specific thing you are trying to ask of me to talk about without just saying that. The thing. You know what I mean?
But on the flip side of that, mine is I want Kaci to feel comfortable saying the thing that they're thinking. And it's like, David wants me to say this. I don't want you to say anything other than what you want to say. And it's like, oh, what do I say?
Yeah.
But you did great.
Thank
I appreciate you. I love you to death.
Love you.
You are one of my absolute best friends. And I appreciate you allowing me to become the person that I am today, because a lot of my growth has come in the period of time that we've relearned who each other is.
It's same.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It's so late. April 27th in Kalkaska. Check out OA and
Murder at the End of the World.
Murder at the End of the World. Follow Kaci Ellens _photography.
Yes.
And become a member of the Patreon for just $1 a month.
Come on. $1.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here.